month ago, Dr. Jerome Corsi told me I had to see this film, Dreams from My Real Father, directed by Joel Gilbert, who's joining us via video Skype for TV and radio listeners here in just a moment. A story of Reds and deception. And he's sort of telling me the claims in the film. It wasn't out yet, and I was sent a screener a few weeks ago. And after I saw it, it fit into a lot of the research we've done. Again, we don't know who Obama is. That's been proven. It was just in the news yesterday in the Daily Mail, Obama's grandfather, tortured by the British, a fantasy like most of the president's own memoir. And they now have had to admit, the White House came out, last year and said, well, a lot of the memoir is just a composite, what we'd like to say. It's fiction, parts of, his name was Barry Soetoro. He had this other name. He looks nothing like the Kenyan dad. The State Department had his dad thrown out, saying it wasn't his dad. He had a dead person's Social Security number. Everybody knew him as Barry. All these other fake names. Nobody's got stuff sealed. His Harvard, papers have been sealed, but then we get some of them. We get his publicist for 17 years, 16 and a half years, saying he was born in Kenya. His wife in speeches saying just 4 years ago, he was born in Kenya. We went back to his homeland, Kenya. His grandmother saying it. The records are cut out over there. But then, did she go over there to have that story that he was born there, and then later they changed it? I don't know. Because the guy they say is his daddy. It'd be like if they showed James Earl Jones and said, well, his last name's Jones. He's Alex Jones' daddy. He looks nothing like Alex Jones. The Kenyan dad, totally different shaped skull, different nose. You can tell the different African tribes by the way they look. Look nothing like Barack Obama, who looks like he's about 80% white. Well, Dreams from My Real Father, it's unbelievable. And it's got shocking research and supposedly Obama's mother in compromised positions. And then I was thinking back, wait, Bill Clinton's mother was an admitted lady of the night, and the guy they said was his dad wasn't his dad. And then we know she frequented with the Governor Rockefeller. And then I looked into that, 15 years ago, and it was all true. And then his mother dies right as he's elected. Obama's mother dies right as he's elected. Amazing. And so this is the type of people they want. Totally compromised. His mother's CIA, his grandmother's CIA, the granddaddy. That's all admitted. So we don't really know who this guy is. We know his mother is who they say, from my research. Now, we have this video discounted. It just came out this week at Infowars.com. You also get a free Citizen Rule book. It supports us, supports the filmmaker. This is a very powerful film. It's available again at InfoWarsShop.com. You've got to see it. We're going to, for people watching on the video stream, we're going to show some side-by-side photos and things. We'll describe these for radio listeners on XM and other stations out there, terrestrial stations. But it is powerful. You got to see it. Because I was kind of like, yeah, there's some evidence. I put it in, and it's like, whoa. And caution, if there's children watching, they cover up the genitals and things, but it is somewhat pornographic as well. So just be aware of that. But this is coffin nails politically to Obama. And the point is, even if he's a puppet, he's totally blackmailed by foreign interest. We're in grave danger, ladies and gentlemen. This guy is not who he says he is. Now, the director is Joel Gilbert. I'm not going to try to even go over all of his bio, but he is a contributing editor for National Security and Foreign Policy, FamilySecurityMatters.org, and appears frequently as foreign policy analyst, national radio shows, TV, major institutes, briefing councils, briefing governments, you name it. I'm not going to get into his whole bio. But he joins us here today. And, Joel, this is really scary stuff. I mean, I would imagine you're watching your back. I'm going to try to shut up and give you the floor, but this is pretty compelling. I have a lot of questions. Tell us about yourself, how you discovered this, and your basic thesis about who this guy really is. Again, thank you for joining us.
Okay, great to be here, Alex. Thank you. I got into this really accidentally. If you look over my shoulder, you can see on the Skype, I produced a film a couple years ago called Atomic Jihad, Ahmadinejad's Coming War, and Obama's Politics of Defeat. And when I researched that film, I watched over 200 speeches of Barack Obama. And I noticed something very strange. Every time he spoke about the rich and the poor, he became very excited. His voice went up a full octave, and he would scream and be so happy, and then he'd go to another subject and he'd be calm again. And that set me off to think this guy has a passion for class struggle. It was very obvious, but it did not fit his background. I knew he went to an exclusive prep school, he went to Harvard Law, so I read his book, Dreams from My Father, and I saw many, many references to Marxism. He specifically went to Occidental College. He arrived at Occidental College at age 18, admittedly as a committed revolutionary Marxist. He went into organizing. He went into socialist conferences. I realized it was a life journey in socialism. So I said, well, what was his experience that he could show up at 18 years old as a Marxist? He must have had a very different experience than any of the other kids at the exclusive Punahou school. So I noticed a very interesting passage in Dreams from My Father where he said that he would visit Frank Marshall Davis's house, the communist propagandist, with his grandfather regularly since age 10. And he said, quote, when I visited Frank, it was as though I was witnessing some complicated, unspoken transaction between Frank and my grandfather. Now that was pretty strange. So I decided to investigate Frank Marshall Davis. And right away you could see that Davis has a striking resemblance to Obama. Same height, 6'2", same forehead, same eyes, the jawline, shocking resemblance, while the Kenyan Obama looked nothing like him. So I said, well, how could that be? And that started about a 2-year investigation where I dug up archives of Frank Marshall Davis from 2 universities that were buried. I went to Hawaii and investigated Davis. I found 500 copies of the Honolulu Record, which is a newspaper, communist-run newspaper that Davis wrote for. And I found that Davis was not only the biological father of Barack Obama, but also the ideological father. In Davis's writings, which I include a lot of those newspapers in the DVD, he flawlessly mirrored official Soviet propaganda. He was a member of the Communist Party. He actually came to Hawaii. He was sent to Hawaii by Communist Party USA in 1948 on the orders of the Kremlin, Comintern International, to help foment a communist takeover of the islands. At that time, the Russians felt that Hawaii was an obstacle to Russian expansion in Asia. So Davis went to Hawaii and helped lead a communist attempt at taking over the government with the ILWU, was the International Longshoremen's Association. It eventually failed. But Davis went on to write in favor of socialized medicine. He blamed America for starting World War II. He denounced the Marshall Plan. He supported socialized medicine. He wanted wealth redistribution. So I concluded at that time that the people who were asking, where's the birth certificate, were asking the wrong question. That the real question was, who's the real father? And that's the key to understanding Barack Obama's plans for the country, and that's the key to understanding his ideology. But I'm convinced, and you can look at the film and see all the evidence, that Davis is in fact the biological father. And I found convincing evidence that Obama's mother, Ann Dunham, had an intimate relationship with Davis. Found over 30 photos of Ann Dunham in various compromising states of nudity. We covered everything up with black bars to be respectful. But we show that there was an intimate relationship with Davis. I actually went to the house in Hawaii. There's a photo if you're on Skype. And we found, I took the measurements, and there's Ann, all kind of compromising things. But we took the measurements and found that that was the house. And the photos are traced to Davis, who was a amateur photographer. So on the one hand, there was absolutely, and there is absolutely no evidence that Obama's mother, Ann Dunham, ever even met the Kenyan Obama. No evidence they were married, no photos, nothing. We have a lot of evidence of an intimate relationship between Frank Marshall Davis, the communist propagandist, and Ann Dunham, Obama's mother.
So the whole Kenyan thing is elaborate to throw us off and make us think that's what's going on.
I believe it's all subterfuge to avoid a much, much darker past.
Now, let's be clear. Let's go back to Ann Dunham, though. I mean, it looks just like her. I've blown it up. These are not photoshopped. How did you get these photos? Go through all that. You've been to the house. You've looked inside. It matches the photos. This is bombshell.
Yeah, it matches the floor. It matches the photos. And the photos are obvious evidence. I want to state one more piece of strong circumstantial evidence. Davis, of course, is known for writing a book called Sex Rebel Black. He talks about 30 years of nefarious activities and sexual deviation and being interested in young girls and so on. So Ann Dunham, think about it. She takes Barry to Indonesia for a couple years. She comes back from Indonesia and tells Gramps, Obama's grandfather, something to the effect of, I'm going back to Indonesia, but you know the guy that I used to pose nude for that engaged in all these activities, I think young Barry should be raised by him. So when I go back to Indonesia, you should take Barry to this guy's house 3 times a week and spend his childhood with him. Now that makes no sense unless Davis is the actual biological father.
And let's be clear, the grandpa Obama says would take him over there.
Oh, absolutely. We have.
Unbelievable.
I spoke to the neighbors, former neighbors of Frank, who are living, and they said that Barry, and they've been interviewed by other people, that Barry came over at age 10 about 3 times a week. And we have Obama himself in his book, Dreams from My Father, where he chronicles and talks about Frank.
Listen, it's his dad. I can't believe this. This is so big. And I want to talk about where you got the photos of her in the Betty Page stuff with the other women. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. We'll be right back. Now, there are hundreds of great products at Dreams from My Real Father, directed by Joel Gilbert, a story of Reds and deception. But again, you got CIA people involved in all this. It looks just like him. And then there it is, because we've got Dreams of Our Father. I checked it when I got this video. He does talk about going to his house every week, and him and his grandpa having this little secret. And then his mother. I mean, it's her in these photos. Let's go back to this. How did you get these photos, Joel?
These photos from several researchers who have to go unnamed. They are actually folks up in San Francisco who use something called Usenet. It's these binary photo collections of all kind of erotic photos from the Betty Page era, from the old.
And now they can use face scans off the photos to digitally analyze. And I know you blur the folks out, but they're in the film. You've got some of these sources in the film.
Absolutely. We also show that you can see the teeth of, even as much as the photos look identical, you can even see there's a match for the teeth. And we've absolutely established, both from the timeline, the house, the objects in the house, even the couch is an exact match to the couch that Frank Marshall Davis sat on in many photos.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you've got him. This is incredible. It's Obama's dad.
Well, let me tell you what this means, though. People say, oh, that's his dad. Let me tell you what it means. Obama sold himself to America as the multicultural ideal. He was above politics because his father was a goat herder from Kenya, so he could bring people together. That's how the story went. So people perceived Obama as a nice man with an inspiring family story. This film demonstrates that it's much more likely that Obama has a deeply disturbing family background that he hid in order to hide a Marxist political foundation. If that's true, which we believe it is, that means there was no improbable love that he talked about in his convention speech. We have a probable liar in the White House and a probable forger of documents, all to hide this political foundation, which is now revealing itself as a socialist Marxist foundation that Frank Marshall Davis himself helped to nurture in Hawaii and in Chicago.
Sure, but just to be clear, Frank Marshall Davis, the same house, the same couch. He is an admitted photographer, writes a book about his porno, type exploits.
From Kenya, so he could bring people together. That's how the story went. So people perceived Obama as a nice man with an